Everyone, this is the Board of Trustees regular meeting. It is June 9th, 2020. It's 7:31 p.m. This is meeting number 2020-11. Please take the roll.
President Barry?
Here.
Trustee Vorder?
Here.
Trustee Mallow?
Here.
Trustee Stalker?
Here.
Trustee Olenichik?
Here.
Trustee Desmond?
Here.
And Trustee Phelan?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Would everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Do we have any public comments, Jane?
No.
Okay, so we have no public comments. Thank you. Item 4 is conflict of interest disclosure. Does anyone have a conflict to disclose with any item on tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we're going to go on to number 5, approval of the meeting minutes for the regular meeting minutes 2020-09 dated May 26, 2020. May I have a motion, please, on 5?
Motion to approve.
I'm going to give that to Trustee Stalker, seconded by Trustee Mallow, I believe. Any discussion? Let's call that vote, please.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Mallow?
Yes.
Trustee Stalker?
Yes.
Trustee Olenichik?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Phelan?
Yes.
Thank you. 6 is approval of meeting minutes for the special meeting minutes 2020-10, dated May 29th, 2020. May I have a motion on item 6, please?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. That was Trustee Stalker again.
I'll second.
Seconded by Trustee Vorder, or Trustee Phelan? No, Trustee Vorder. Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Let's call that vote, please.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Mallow?
Yes.
Trustee Stalker?
Yes.
Trustee Olenichik?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Phelan?
Yes.
Motion passes.
New business by village trustees. Trustee Olenichik, is your guest here yet?
I don't see him yet.
Okay, we're going to start in District 6 then. Oh, he is here. Okay, let's start in District 1.
All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Board.
District 1 first, please.
I'm sorry?
We're going to start in District 1.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Got me all
Wow.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to commend our Chief of Police and his police department and Chief Riddle and his fire department and all the first responders, I guess, for the outstanding work they did last weekend. It was a tough time, a lot of calls. So I know everybody appreciates all the hard work they did, and they, if it was a test, if that was a test, when they passed with flying colours, I believe. So thank you, Chief. There's our and one other thing I'd like to, Mr. Tice is retiring from St. Gerald's. He was the principal of St. Gerald's for the past 10 years. He is retiring, and I would like to wish him the best of luck. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Trustee Desmond. District 2, Trustee Olenichik.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome.
A couple of things I want to talk about. We've been in our water meter replacement mode. We've had good response to that, but right now we're in the finishing touches of it. And I know that many residents have gotten their water meters changed. It's not a difficult process, but there are some residents that still, with the COVID going on, do not feel comfortable letting people in their homes. So I've had a couple of residents that have called, and they've been given non-compliant cards that are orange, and it says action required. And these are seniors that basically have called me up saying, I feel a little intimidated with the language that's on there, and I can understand that because it's basically saying you have to get it scheduled by June 12th or you will be charged a $500 fine. And I know that's not the intention of talking to staff and Public Works. I know that we want to get everyone compliant as soon as we possibly can, but we also want to be very cognizant of the special conditions that are going on now. One of the seniors that I talked to has not had anyone in his house, including family, since the virus has started, and I know that that's something that we as a village will take into consideration. So I just want to let citizens out there that need some extra time, that we will be able to make the arrangements in the future. I know that the COVID is, especially if you're in the age group that it seems to have the largest effect on, would be very leery of having people in their homes. I talked with Steve Barrett, and he said, of course, that's what we're here for. We just want to make sure that people do make the effort to let us know that, so that way we can plan accordingly. And Brian, I don't know if you've heard anything from our vendor that's doing it, but we've got to be down to the last 10% that need to have these done.
We obviously are not sending the notice out. The goal is not to fine people $500. This is the 5th notice, Alex, and all we've asked people to do is to work with the village on scheduling. We also understand that there's a pandemic that's affected us all. So our biggest thing is that PMI, which is the installer, is going to wrap up their work ballpark June 30th. The reason for that notice is really just to get them on the schedule.
Yeah, but I also would say that if I'm a senior and I don't feel comfortable with all the stuff that's going on now, and I can't reasonably allow somebody in because I'm afraid for my health into my home, will we make accommodations?
Yeah, we can wait until they're comfortable to do it. It'll just have to be staff. It'll have to be public works personnel to make the exchange.
All right, because I understand what we want to do, but if I'm reading this and I'm 75, 68, 50 years old, and I'm looking at this going, you made 4 attempts during a pandemic, and this is what I've heard, to gain access to your water meter and have received no response, and then citing the village ordinance, the language is severe to get a reaction. But I would say that what we've learned from this is in the future, maybe putting out there that if you have special needs, if there's circumstances that you haven't been able to, please give us a call so we can make arrangements on that. But, when you say for the replacement of your water meter, you will be charged a $500 fine. It's just definite. So I know that that's not what we intended. I just want to let people know that we will work with them. And who would they call? Just the same number on it?
The number that's on there, or they can call Katie Mack in the water division. But I want you to understand, this is the 5th notice, and whoever's gotten that has ignored the first 4. So it hasn't been, again, I know there are circumstances in every case, but this has been straight, ignoring the village's previous requests.
Right, but here's the problem that I have with that. The one senior resident that called me up late on Friday said that had they not seen the guy go up or person go up and try to put it on their mailbox or their door, it blew away. He actually had to come out of his house to pick it up. So some of that could be the way that it's not being mailed. This is just being hung on a door.
No, that one was put on the door, but the others were all mailed.
Okay.
So again, we will work with whatever situation we have. There's about 650 to 700 left of homeowners out of 17,000. So you're right, it's about give or take 10%.
Yeah, and I'm sure nobody, when this whole thing started, would ever have thought that there'd be a pandemic in the middle of us trying to get.
Right.
So, okay. Next thing I'd like to talk about is what we've been experiencing. I do commend the board for coming into a public meeting using our village boardroom. This is the first meeting that we as a board have sat down and met face-to-face since the pandemic has started out, correct?
Last one you called in.
So with having these public face-to-face openings, and we do have people that can come in and speak, and then taking a look at the medical statistics. And here are some of the things that we were told that, phase 1, we had to meet certain statistics. Phase 2, I believe we're in phase 3 that we've met the statistics. And we're really not hearing a lot about what's going on with the pandemic other than you see, and anybody that follows the statistics, that whatever we did is working and it continues to work and our numbers continue to go down, yet we still have governmental control that says it's okay for you to go out and have food outdoors, but it's not okay for you to dine in and have food indoors. Prior to that, it was okay for us to have essential business such as liquor stores, such as the marijuana sales shops open, the dispensaries, and many other ones that really didn't make sense to me. But now we're starting to see that we're clearing and the numbers are getting better, and people are feeling better about being out. I don't know if many members of the board have been out at some of our outdoor dining venues, but it's a wonderful experience, and it's starting to make you feel like things are getting back to normal. With that being said, I've had conversations with some businesses that recently just were able to open under severe restrictions, and then other business owners that haven't been able to reopen yet. And I look at, the small businessmen, and I'm going to ask Pete from Oak Lawn Restaurant to come in and say a couple of words, but, Pete I've talked to because, he was telling me about the remodel job that he's doing. He's anxious to reopen. Pete, you redid the kitchen? And then you're also putting a new roof on?
Yes.
So you're waiting to be able to open up. If you'd like to come on in, I guess because you're going to be closer than 6:50, I'm supposed to wear. So I'll do that here.
Hi, Pete. Can you come over here and maybe use Trustee Oliniechek's mic and say hello and tell us a little bit about your restaurant and what your situation is?
Sure. Hold on, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, before Pete talks, this Oak Lawn Restaurant's been around for many years.
Since 57.
Yeah, since 1957. And for those of you who haven't been there, it's a family-run, family-owned restaurant. It's been a pinnacle of the village of Oak Lawn for many years. Yet, due to the restrictions that we have, this gentleman is not able to open up his business to people who are willing to come in, and he's not able to open up his business even if he is willing to exercise good caution, all safe food keeping, cleanliness, mask, because our current regulations state that we're not allowed to do that, and we may not see that, according to what the governor put out, until sometime in September, October. It's undefined, and nobody's answering any of the questions of what's the science behind it, who's making the decisions on it, and why aren't we able to reasonably look to start opening up the businesses. So if you want to tell a little bit about your restaurant, what you've done during this time.
Sure. Thank you, Alex. It's nice to see everybody. Everybody, I hope, is safe and well. I was going to write down this speech and blah, 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 but I'm just going to shoot from the heart. We're a small business, family, my brother and I. We don't have access to capital like these franchises and other big corporate restaurants do. So we're hurting. We've put our heart and soul into this place, our blood, sweat, and tears, and we're hurting. We need to open. They said something I've heard about opening and putting limited seating outside, but you can't do it on the sidewalk. Well, I'm sure if most of you know, 90% of my customers are senior citizens. I don't want to have these people sitting out in the heat, regardless, to eat their lunch or their breakfast. And other than that, really, I can't emphasize how much we need to open. We've remodeled our kitchen. We put all new equipment. We're putting a new roof. We've spent well over $20-something thousand trying to fix it up. We're painting. We're just trying to get ready, but we need to be allowed to open. You guys watch TV. You see, they say exercise, social distancing, but nobody's really doing it. I mean, what is considered safe? I mean, I can go to Walmart and there's 500 people walking around, and then I can't go have breakfast with my friends. So all I'm saying is we need to open. Small places like us that we just, our employees, as you know, frontline workers, these people are minimum wage workers. They live off of their tips, these waitresses. And I've got 12 girls right now that have been calling me every day wondering when we're going to open. And if we open in a limited basis where we can only get 20 people, I only need 2 waitresses. What are the rest going to do? Same with my cooks. If we're only open limited, I can't bring all my cooks back. I can't bring my dishwashers back. I can't bring my busboys back. So I'm not trying to cry too much to you guys. I'm just saying I just want you to know how much we are hurting and how much we want to open, because a lot of our people depend on us, senior citizens. They would come in and buy 4 meals for their whole week. They would come in, their grandkids would pick up meals for them. Families would come in, and they made it a tradition every Saturday and Sunday to come on in. So we're missing you guys really bad. We're really missing everybody. So thank you, Alex. Alex has been in touch with me. This man is phenomenal. He's just been he's been a very good friend to me, so.
That's only
Alex,
because
thank
my
you.
mother made me her favorite restaurant, but you run a great business. But, Madam Mayor, this is just one example, and I could bring out 100 from the village, some businesses that have decided to close. I heard that Louis Chop House is not coming back and is not going to be open, another staple business. And taking all things into consideration, especially what's transpired over the last week, 2 weeks, where, we see it's okay to have 1,000 or 10,000 people in mass over at this, but it's not okay to have 50 people over here. It's okay for people to go to other states and enjoy outdoor dining, indoor dining, whatever they want, but in the state of Illinois, it's not okay. And I fully get it. And if a person doesn't feel comfortable with going out to eat, then don't go out to eat. If a person doesn't feel comfortable with dining indoors, you've always had the choice. Don't dine indoors. But I would say, if we don't do something for these small businessmen and try to see whatever we could do to get the governor's approval, because basically, from what I understand, it's our state legislature which is holding us back from going into the next step. Is that correct?
Right now, it's the executive order, right?
So it's an executive order, and the executive order is supposed to end?
July, it's extended through July. right now.
Okay. And that is the executive order based off of what the governor's people have told him should be done for socialization and for the ability to control and reduce the COVID, correct?
I believe that's true.
Well, I think what we've seen in the last week, definitely, with the people exercising their rights to protest, with people now being able to go out to outdoor venues, and none of the statistics I've seen, and Tom, I know you follow them greatly, are you seeing any significant rise in the statistics that are being reported?
No, zero.
Matter of fact, they're going down, still. So I think enough is enough, and let's stop the nonsense, and let's start giving a business owner the ability to open up his place and let him serve people using...
Or her.
Or her, yeah, him or her, that's correct. The business person, let them run their business and let them practice the way that they've always practiced running a good, safe business. But we need to send something to the state, and I would hope that we could put a unanimous order or decree back to our governor. I know that one of the other local communities sent a decree, and to this day, the governor still hasn't replied back, and that's not fair. He reports to the people of the state of Illinois, us included in the village of Oak Lawn. And I believe that he needs to start making better decisions based off of the science and the facts that are out there. And I would love for him to come into the village of Oak Lawn and take a look at how we're doing and talk to some of these business owners that are honest, good, hardworking people that are barely keeping their heads above water. This is time for us as a village to say, we'll support the businesses, which we've done by helping them get open with the outdoor venue, but what can we do to support these businesses to let them open up on the indoor side? You hear if you do it, the governor's going to send in what would he send in first? The state police? Then he would send in state inspectors, and this gentleman here could lose his business license if he opened up today because of the decree. Not fair. We let over 10,000 prisoners out of Cook County Jail because it was deemed medically unsafe in Cook County Jail. But yet, a business owner that's going to try to provide for himself, his family, and other people could be arrested and put in the jail. That's nonsense. We need to stop the nonsense, and we need to start leading.
Alex, I'd like to chime in if I could.
Trustee Stalker.
I went to lunch today at Craples. I know I went out of the village, I apologize. But Craples has a beautiful outdoor patio. And guess what happened? It started to rain, so they shut all the garage doors, so my outdoor dining was now indoors. Nobody went in there and complained about it. There was never a problem. They have table space well apart. There's no people sitting right next to each other at the bar. It's just something that we do all day, every day, in grocery stores, liquor stores, and everywhere else. We practice social distancing in other businesses. We can practice social distancing in restaurants without being outdoors. So I think we should add to the social distancing requirements, but not stop indoor restaurants any more than we've stopped grocery stores, liquor stores, or any other type of store.
I appreciate your support.
Madam Mayor?
Mayor.
Okay, I'm going to go trustee Phelan, then trustee Warder.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to, as I did prior with trustee Stalker and Olechek, agree with 1,000%. It's become infuriating, actually, is the word I would use. When this thing first started, it was fair for everybody to be overly cautious, and everybody was. And we heard from the president on down to the governors, to the local mayor of the city. 3 times a day they were at press conferences and citing data and science and using just those terms. And as Trustee Olechek said, never providing what the data or science was. As the board knows here, for the last several weeks, I've downloaded the data from county medical examiners. The data is screamingly obvious. If you are an elderly person with a serious illness, you have a grave concern. If you're in a nursing home, you're especially susceptible. For the rest of the country, and I mean the rest of the country, the latest report, and this is what bothers me, we have a governor who is on camera 3, 4, 5 times a day, finger wagging, lecturing, threatening, talking about data and science that he never explained. Well, now the data and science is coming out day after day, and we don't hear anything about it. Like yesterday, the World Health Organization said asymptomatic carriers are not likely spreading the disease. CDC, our own Center for Disease Control, stated recently that now, as more data comes in, it is more likely that you'll die from the regular flu than the coronavirus if you're 65 or younger. Now, people quick to say, well, it's not the flu, and I agree with that. And I'm no medical doctor, don't get me wrong, but I speak to enough people, research enough things. This is a severe, severe case of pneumonia. And as I said before, and I've shared with the board, we have incentives for medical professionals, hospitals, funeral homes, nursing homes to categorize things COVID death because of financial risk. They'll get reimbursements. That can't be denied. We have testing that's not reliable. And that's a reason that the hospital can say, well, if we're not sure and if we think we can categorize it as COVID. So the statistic and the numbers of cases, yes, they can continue to rise, but what we're not seeing is, as Trustee Olechek said, a spike at all in hospitalizations or deaths. Both are going down. We get a report from the hospital every week, this board, and they don't go into big details, unfortunately, but week after week we've been told things are okay and they're improving. And at the end of the day, we sit here now with businesses closing, people losing their livelihoods. And in the last week and a half, where we're seeing based on protests, on issues that people feel strongly about, they're allowed to gather in thousands, 3,000 and 4,000 people with these same politicians marching with them. The high ground and finger wagging has to end. There has to be accountability. There has to be real science and real data backing up decisions. And I agree 1,000%. The time for this is over. We need to get back to normal. People who have health conditions, elderly people need to be cautious. Their family members need to be especially cautious. The rest of us, children, school-age people who've been deprived of graduations, people can't go to their own family's funerals because of all of this. We don't need to be told by people higher than us, quote unquote, in the politics game. Just because somebody is a governor doesn't mean he or she is smarter than our own mayor who's a doctor. And I think it's at this point we need to start establishing our own rules here and allow these businesses to operate and challenge these people who are finger wagging at us to follow through on their threats. Because I'm here to tell you, I'll bet you the population will revolt more so than we saw in the last 2 weeks. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Trustee Warder.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. First off, Pete, I want to thank you for being part of a business more than 60-plus years in the village. I remember going to your restaurant with my mom years and years ago, and I've been there probably thousands and thousands of times since, and you know that. You see me there all the time. And it's a darn shame you're suffering okay, during this thing. If you, just so you can see here, if the board had the authority, you'd be opening up tomorrow morning. I think, just to cap on what everybody's saying here, what's happening here is there's so much confusion. Nobody really knows what's going on. And in fact, there's so much one side or the other side. I'm becoming very suspicious of this whole virus thing myself. I know nobody that's had the virus. Does anybody in this room personally knew anybody? The mayor, well, you're a doctor, Mayor, okay? But, oh, yeah, okay, well, then I guess I'm wrong. I don't really know anybody. But it isn't a pandemic, great portion. You know what? I go out and I'm living my life. And I just don't see it. And I hope that this governor comes to the realization. I heard today that the city of Chicago is canceling its entire agenda for outdoor activities through the whole entire summer. I certainly hope that's not a message that's going to be sent down to Springfield, and we're going to have to all live on that edict. So again, thank you for being a successful businessman in Oak Lawn, and I look forward to the day you're open.
Not only businessman, my whole family, we're residents here. We live here too.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Desmond.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to follow up on, I guess, what Trustee Elnejik and Trustee Phelan has said. I mean, what is to prevent him from opening his restaurant tomorrow? He does need a state license to serve food.
But he does have a liquor license.
But if he doesn't serve liquor,
He would still be at risk of losing the
he's
license.
not violating his state license. He's not serving liquor. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here. I mean, what
If it was my license, I would want to protect it.
Well, I mean, all he would be really doing is violating an executive order. We're not going to send Oak Lawn police in to pull people out because they're sitting too close together. I mean, it would be the risk the business would take. They wouldn't need our permission. He already has our license, the village license.
Trustee Desmond, the way to look at it is the governor shut them down, the governor should open them up, and the village should, you know, get along.
We're kind of not hearing, we're hearing some grumbling in here tonight that may not be good enough for our businesses.
Oh, it's more than grumbling. We, the Village of Oak Lawn, need to challenge along with all the other, I'm sure the other communities are thinking the exact same thing. There's not a person that I've walked into and talked to over the last 2 weeks that isn't feeling that something different's going on. This doesn't make sense. That rate's going down. All of the key statistics that the governor taunted over a month and a half ago are going down, and they're going down more rapidly than what we've ever expected them to do. Yet, the ability for a business person to open up, and not, you think about, he's one person. He employs at least another 10 or 15 other people. That's putting people back to work so that they can provide for their family. That's just one business.
Is he still here?
Yes, he is.
Can you ask him to come in again?
Hey, Pete, could you come in real quick?
Well, Pete's coming back in. The days that they're talking about, the 28 days, I think is the issue. The 14 days is what everybody else is doing, and I don't understand why we're not using 14 days instead of 28 days. We would already be in that 14 days, and instead of this outside dining starting, we would be at inside dining starting. And I don't get it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. We're at that point, it's gone, and now we need to move on and start to open up.
Pete, my question to you, I guess, is what we're saying is, what is to prevent you from opening up tomorrow
Get him the microphone.
and serving your customers? Now, you have a state license for liquor,
I do.
but you could serve. You don't have to serve liquor.
I don't have to.
But I mean, how does that? To serve liquor would probably violate your state license. But now, if you don't serve liquor and serve food, how does that affect your insurance? Do you have any idea, or did you ever look into it?
I have no idea right off the top of my head, but after I spoke to you and I heard you speaking, and that if I want to be a little bit more frank, is I'm afraid that if we go against this, whatever this governor's put out there, this mandate that we can't open, next year or the year after, when our license is due,
well, that's the fear.
It'll get delayed, or it'll get lost, or we won't get renewed, or it'll just bust our chops. I didn't want to get political, but now since we're all talking straight, this is one of my fears. But we need to open. That's it. I mean, I've said it 100 times. That those few words. We need to open, we need to feed our people, we need to get my people back to work. My family has mortgaged our homes for this business. All of us, my father, my brother, and myself, we need to get back in. I got 20 employees that want to work. These people need to get back to work. And I just, I can't emphasize it enough.
And Pete, this isn't politics.
Not at all.
This is what's right and what's wrong. This is about if the statistics are coming down quicker, react quicker. If the numbers are allowing us to move into the next phase quicker, based off his own numbers, let us act quicker. Let's not sit there and put the clock on and say, well, now we got to wait till the end of the month. What's the difference of 2 weeks? 2 weeks to you could be the difference of life or death.
Absolutely.
Alex, with all the unrest that's been going on, we will have a major test on whether or not this social distancing has any bearing, because if we don't see a spike in the virus in the next 4 weeks with all the protests and people, then we think that we've been hoodwinked. And we're going to all pay a big price for that.
Madam Mayor?
Trustee Phelan.
To Trustee Vorderer's point, and I jokingly said weeks ago, probably more than a month ago, the science that's missing is a test. Any good science experiment has a test. And had we been able to back then say, let's pick a group somewhere and put them out in the public all together and see if they get sick. Well, we had those groups. They were all over the country. They were on beaches in Florida and California. There were street parties in the city of Chicago and Michigan, Georgia, the full state. Steve Radis was just in Florida, said every restaurant is open. Nobody's wearing masks except the servers. We have this. It's happening over and over for months and months, and there is no outbreak. There is no surge in these cases. And if there is, they are asymptomatic. People are not getting sick. The science is settled. And I defy anybody to say that's wrong. I mean, don't believe me, believe your eyes. It's common sense. And I would say this to Pete's point. I wonder if Louis' Chop House 4 months ago, if he had known this is where he'd go, would he have taken his chances? Because I know, wasn't there a restaurant in Orland Park, Paul, I think, 94 West, and they just figured, if I'm going to go out of business anyway, the risk is that the governor might shut me down or take my license. Well, I'm going out of business anyway. And I think we're at that point. A lot of people are at that point. And we didn't shut these businesses down. Chief, you didn't shut them down. It's not our executive decree. As far as I'm concerned, they're not breaking a law if they're serving people. They're doing exactly what Pete said. Walmart is serving them hand over fist. You can go into grocery stores and squeeze bread and touch lemons and throw watermelons back in the pile. Next person comes in, does the same thing. Come on. We don't have any less authority on this matter than, let's frankly say it, a governor who is a hotel magnate or a prosecutor from the city of Chicago who's now the mayor. Yes, they're being advised by public health officials, but even those people, the governor's or the mayor's being advised by a pediatrician. Nobody knows, including Fauci, exactly what to do. And we did everything we needed to do. We've had 4 months of testing, and I think that is conclusive. And I'm emphatically in favor of allowing these restaurants and institutions to take the risk they're willing to take, independent of what the village is going to do, and hopefully we have a consensus, the board, that says we are not going to do anything about it. That would be my position.
Again, I think the big issue will be there's businesses that serve liquor. They're the ones that are dependent on a state license. And if they're violating the state license, it probably affects their insurance or their liability. So, I mean, again, that would be up to the business to work that out with them.
Right.
Yeah, but one of the things, or two of the things that I got from Pete, number one, he is hurting. That's a small businessman, family-owned, been family-owned. Number two, I got out of it is there's other people that work for him that are hurt. But the bigger thing I got out of it is he's afraid to take that chance of saying, I'm going to open up my place, I'm going to operate it safely and correctly, and I'm going to defy a decree from the governor. And then it turns into, it's politics. This has nothing to do with politics. This has to do with right and what's wrong. And too many people are looking at this COVID as saying, well, if you do it this way, then you're that way. If you do it this way, then you're that way. I'm looking at what's right and what's wrong. And I honestly eat in that restaurant with my family. My 95-year-old mom will probably be one of the first people that's going to want to get out of the house and go to the restaurant practicing social distancing without worrying about jeopardizing her health. But the point is, he has the ability to open up, and he's invested his hard-earned money for it. And there is nothing that the governor has put out there that shows that he shouldn't have the right to start opening up tomorrow, next week. Why are we letting this go on to the end of the month? I think we beat this to death. We're all on the same page. Council, what legal rights do we have?
Well, there's been a number of challenges in federal court against the executive order, and those were early on, and the governor has, that his executive order has been upheld. So it's been found legal on constitutional challenges for religious purposes. As you know, the Supreme Court asked for a brief. They wound up expanding the religious ruling once he got challenged on that. Let me get back to you on that. From sending a resolution like a neighboring village did, asking for him to allow businesses to reopen, and he asked him to get back to us. I think that's a start. I don't think I would advocate suing over the executive order at this point. I don't think that's wise.
And Council, just one question. That challenge has come from, let's say, local businesses to the executive order. Has there anything come the other way? Has the executive order been enforced against any local business that you know of? Has anyone,
not that I'm aware of. I've heard rumors, but I have nothing evidential, no hard evidence.
Mayor, just one more point. As a man who's been in business for 35 years, every decision I make is kind of based on liability, okay, and the consequences of making a mistake. I sincerely wonder if, in fact, a business was to open up in violation of Governor, what liability he assumes. I can see the first person that comes down with the illness is going to say, I got it at the Oaklawn restaurant, and I'm suing you. That's a possibility, am I not?
Those things are taking place, and I have seen letters from insurance companies. I saw one to a municipal entity that said if a municipality allowed business to open that, and somebody sued the village, that there would be no insurance for the village.
Yeah, so there's a lot of consequences.
Yeah.
And just advising our businesses.
All been flushed out, 100%. And I don't think, we didn't shut anybody down here in Oaklawn. I'll speak to Oaklawn. Nobody shut Oaklawn shut nobody down.
No.
There are no orders in place to close any businesses or bars or restaurants or hair salons or any business by this body. This is the governor's executive order that's done this.
Mayor? And to Paul's point, and following up with Terry, because we didn't shut anybody down, it's not us allowing them to open back up.
Correct.
I think that stands to reason. So it's incumbent and falls upon the business owner. I know that a friend of ours who's on the Liquor Commission, Tom DiMatteo, is an insurance executive with a lot of businesses in the restaurant and bar industry, and he pursued that with some high-level carriers, about what if something would happen in the normal course of business. I didn't get a definitive action, but it wasn't an outright no either. That's the last I'd heard. And the likelihood of someone being able to prove where they caught a coronavirus, God help us. But I did want to say, as it relates to the challenges, we saw when the church sued Pritzker, he backed down immediately. So again, how strongly he believes in his own science and data and moral high ground, up to debate. And all this now is occurring as he's out marching with people in the south suburbs in groups of hundreds. So again, I challenge anybody now to say and listen to him lecture us about staying in groups of 10 or under 10 or social distancing. There are pictures of him with hundreds of people. Again, the science is settled. It's raging hypocrisy beyond this point.
I wonder if that
political.
Hayden in Wisconsin was practicing social distance.
Well, you got to realize that Wisconsin.
Let's move on.
Okay, let's move on.
I still have a couple more things.
Fine, Trustee Olenichek.
All right. Well, thank you guys for your support. Hopefully, we can do, you're recommending, council, that we do a resolution?
If you'd like, I can draft something up and circulate it and see how we can start there. And I'll research some other things.
Would we need a motion from a board to do that, or?
What I would probably do is bring it back at our next meeting and have it approved.
Our next meeting is not until after July.
We always have the option for a special meeting.
We could have a special meeting, do it telephonically.
Okay.
We also have an option for a special meeting.
All right.
Correct. Thank you, Bud.
Well, on some better news, I know that St. Gerald's lost a great pastor, Father Malcolm, last year. And we have heard an announcement this week, exciting announcement, that we have our new pastor, Father Pagor, who will be joining us from St. Ben's up north on the north side of Chicago. So I haven't figured out if he's a Cubs fan or a Sox fan yet, but we look forward to meeting St. Gerald's. He will be taking over on the 1st of July, so we look forward to him filling some big shoes and continuing the leadership of St. Gerald's. That concludes my report.
Thank you. District 3, Trustee Mallow.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few announcements regarding what events we have going on, in case people out there are questioning or wondering. We do have our farmers market that's open every Wednesday. We're open from 7 to 1. It's out in the library parking lot. So those are going on, and please visit them. Those are great vendors, and they're looking for your support. The second thing is the Concerts on the Green. The Concerts on the Green will be our first event. It's set to kick off on June 28th, which is a Sunday. Wild Daisy is our first performer. So we hope everybody would be able to either be there, or, if we can do something with a video so they could watch or see it on TV. But we're looking to get that going. And then, obviously, the big question in everybody's mind is the 4th of July parade. Right now, we're going forward. We're going on as scheduled to have our 4th of July parade. So I hope that I'll be there. I hope everybody else will be there. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, can I just add on to that? Maybe after the 4th of July parade, I was told today that Oak Lawn Lake has been stocked and that you can go fishing there now. It's a catch and release, but I believe that the species of fish in there are bluegill, sunfish, some catfish, and then in the next 2 weeks, they're going to be putting some bass in there. So Oak Lawn Lake is alive with fish again if you want to go after the 4th of July parade.
And one other point, just in regards to the fireworks that night, we got some disappointing news just today. All the trustees did, and the mayor. The Park District is not going to go ahead with the fireworks. It was disappointing to hear. I think there's ways that fireworks can go off. Being able to get, I believe we'll be in phase 4 at that point in time. The 50 people, the 1,000 people, whatever you have, wherever they're going to be watching the Blue Angels fly or whatever that happened X amount of months ago, I think they should reconsider that decision. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. District 4, Trustee Warderer.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, over the course of my lifetime living in this village, I've worn a lot of hats. And the most proud hat I wore was a police department hat and shield. And I am so proud to be a part and say that I was a member of this excellent police department, Chief. You did a wonderful job during these trying times. Yes, were we victims of a couple of incidents? Fine. But those criminals found that they picked the wrong town. You did a wonderful job, Chief, and I wouldn't expect anything less. Congratulations, and please pass that on to your men. I'd appreciate it, Chief.
Yeah, exactly. Let me reiterate, it wasn't me, it was the men and women that were out there on the front lines, and so big kudos to them. Great job that they did.
Yes,
we made 11 arrests, so, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. District 5, Trustee Stalker.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Trustee Vorder has said about the police department. I think we have a wonderfully professional police department trained by a very professional chief of police, and I'm really proud to be a member of the Village of Oak Lawn. The fire department certainly does a wonderful job as well, but now is the time of the police department. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. District 6, trustee.
Thank you, Mayor. And keeping in that same issue, as the chief knows and most of us here know, during the curfews and the worry and threats of looting and the actual incidents that were prevented, hundreds of different texts, postings on social networks that we were getting and sharing and inquiring, and I can't even imagine in your position how you were handling it. But I did go back and start cataloging them because it was getting so frustrating. And literally 97% of what was posted on social networks was false to a greater or lesser degree. 97%, including one incident where a person was adamant about some store being looted at a certain intersection, where a friend of mine said, well, I happen to be standing right here and it's not happening. And they're saying, well, I heard it on the scanner. And I don't know, Chief, if you address the issue of the scanner. There's a social network site that's called Oak Lawn Police Scanner that many people considered to be a legitimate source. But isn't it true, Chief, when you're listening to the scanner, you're basically listening to all the panic people calling in with calls, many of which turn out to be not true, unfounded, or nothing at all. But when you're reporting to the public everything you're hearing on a scanner, you're magnifying the problem of misinformation. I just wonder if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we have this issue all the time, and I think we tried to address it early on when I took over as chief back in 2017. We created a Twitter page. Well, it was there, but it wasn't utilized as much as it should have been at the time. So we did try to put out updated information out on our Twitter feed, and we were trying to send information out through the Smart 911 system. So I would encourage all the residents to sign up for that and sign up for the Oak Lawn Police Department Twitter account, because we do attempt to put out information as fast as we can get it. And if you're looking at our site, we are not going to put out anything that is not bona fide. I will not put out anything that is a speculation or, hey, I heard from this guy or I heard from that people, which is, I believe, what the Oak Lawn Scanner individual who runs that was doing. He may hear different information and they think all of a sudden that is gospel or that is the information that is actually going down, when in fact I had the same experience you did where, somebody had called me, I believe it was you as a matter of fact, and I was like, no, that's not what I'm hearing at all, and we have people that are assisting Evergreen, and I'd also like to thank the towns that assisted us with our issue. We had Evergreen Park help us, we helped Evergreen Park, we helped Alsip, Burbank was involved. It's great when all the communities around us work together like we do, and we have a great relationship. And I also want to mention the fire department. The fire department, when we had our demonstration the other day, they were out and they assisted us with the peaceful protest that we had. And I want to thank all the protesters that were there. They exercised their First Amendment right. It was peaceful. I was thankful for that. The mayor was on scene with us that day, and it's nice to see the First Amendment in action and see people peaceably protesting rather than trying to cause an issue. But to reiterate what you were originally saying, yes, a lot of disinformation is out there and people take it as gospel, and a lot of the stuff on Facebook is rumor and somebody heard it from this person, and so that's just because it's on there doesn't mean it's true. So take it with a grain of salt, and if you want legitimate information, go to the Oak Lawn Police Department Twitter account or follow us on Facebook, and we try to keep everybody as up to date as we can.
And if I could, one point about that, in this age of 24/7 news and instantaneous information, people will say, well, I was on the Twitter page and it hasn't been updated for an hour or two. And I explain to them, the police isn't there to provide you play-by-play of what's happening in the community. The Smart 911 plus the Twitter page combined should provide you with enough to keep you safe.
Exactly.
We're not trying to provide you an information so you could be out there on the scene or knowing what's going on. And unfortunately, a lot of people now have come to expect it. They want instant messaging. They want to know exactly when things are happening. So I'm just asking the people of Oak Lawn, to understand the police and all of our emergency responders have to do their job first and foremost. And when there is an emergency, and I know that we're making a better effort with that Smart 911 to communicate to those who are affected what to do in those situations. And I only want to finish with this issue of the protesting. Personally, I find it frustrating. It's certainly the First Amendment is great, and we should all be happy and protect it at every turn. But, you know, what I find frustrating, and I hopefully share this sentiment with many people out there, is I've yet to see anybody defend what happened in Minneapolis. Not one person. And it unfortunately got turned into such a horribly political situation that, you know, at the end, the police become the bad guys in this situation, to the point now where we're seeing talk of defunding police departments and all of this. And I just don't, it's otherworldly to me. It's surreal. Because again, at the end of the day, nobody is defending what happened. In fact, it's been roundly criticized. Many people I know in the law enforcement department said it was excessive. But, you know, as a country, we need to do better than this. We need to come together. Yes, we need to respect people and their protesting and their First Amendment rights, but not to the extent I believe now are seeing where our police are targets and the victims, and people are afraid to put signs in front of their homes lauding the efforts of the first responders, who, by the way, were doing life-saving work for the 3 or 4 months prior to that, and how quickly things change in this divided country. So I think as elected officials, we need to do our part to make sure that people understand that, you know, in general, police need to be supported, but in particular, the Oklahoma Police Department, who did such a great job, need to not only be supported but commended. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay, Chief. Village manager, village manager's report.
No report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Item 9 is the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are routine and have been brought forward at the direction of the Board of Trustees and will be enacted with one motion. If discussions desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Item 9A is a request to approve the Zoning and Planning Commission for 1-foot fence height variation in order to construct a pool at 10624 South Keeler. This was a 7-0 vote to approve. Petition number 2020-9. James and Courtney Hederman are the petitioners in District 6. Item B is ordinance 2011-26, an ordinance granting that request. C, ordinance 2011-27, an ordinance amending Section 3-24-1 of the Oakland Village Code regarding the vehicle fuel tax. D is Resolution 2011-30, a resolution approving payment of Chicago Strike Force rent through the Equitable Sharing Fund. E is Resolution 2011-31, a resolution approving payment of a video surveillance license renewal for Chicago Strike Force through the Equitable Sharing Fund. F is Resolution 2011-32, resolution awarding K5 Construction the contract to perform the 2020 street program. G is Resolution 2011-33, a resolution authorizing Fourth Amendment to credit agreement with First Midwest Bank. H is Resolution 2011-34, a resolution authorizing the amendment of the continuing covenant agreement relating to the $20 million Village of Oak Lawn, Cook County, Illinois Regional Water System Revenue Bonds Revolving Line of Credit, Series 2020. May I have a motion on 9, please?
Motion to approve, Mayor.
Thank you. Trustee Vorder made that motion. Do I have a
Second.
second? Trustee Stalker is our second. Any discussion, gentlemen?
Mayor, may I have A and B removed?
Thank you. Any other discussion? So we are calling the vote on item on 9 with the exception of A and B. Let's call that vote, please.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Mallow?
Yes.
Trustee Stalker?
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Phelan?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. 9A is a request to approve the Zoning and Planning Commission referral for a 1-foot fence height variation in order to construct a pool at 10624 South Keeler, which was a 7-0 vote to approve. Petition number 2020-9. James and Courtney Hederman are the petitioners in District 6. And Be Like Boy is an ordinance granting that request. May I have a motion on 9A, please?
Move to approve?
Thank you. Trustee
Second.
Phelan made that motion, seconded by Trustee Mallow. Any discussion?
Yes, Mayor. The only reason I pulled this is Courtney's been in the hallway standing this whole time, and I feel terrible that she came up here for no reason. So they've done a beautiful job, built a beautiful new home, and are improving it further still. So I just want to acknowledge that you're out there, Courtney. Thank you for adding to the beauty of our neighborhood.
Thanks so much, appreciate it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Nope.
I want to take
All good.
a lot of time, just be happy to answer any questions.
I do have a question. How many nails did you put in the fence?
I don't think.
Trustee Oliniechek? Be nice.
I know, you're kidding.
Okay.
I didn't do it myself.
And when does the pool open?
Well, that was next.
Yeah, I'll be honest, if this weather cooperates, then hopefully Friday.
Friday.
So pool party at our house.
Social distance.
There we go.
Of course.
Better be a big pool.
Absolutely.
We'll be there.
Thank you.
Let's call the vote on 9A and B, please. Or do I need them separate, Paul?
Well, you called the motion to approve A.
Okay, let's vote on 9A. Thank you, Paul.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Mallow?
Yes.
Trustee Stalker?
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Phelan?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And 9B, let's call the vote, please.
Motion, we need a motion.
Motion.
Oh, I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Trustee
Second.
Phelan, seconded by Trustee Oliniechek. Let's call, any discussion? Call the vote.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Mallow?
Yes.
Trustee Stalker?
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Phelan?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Have
it.
fun.
For all that you guys are doing. And
Enjoy it.
appreciate it.
Jealous.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, 10, discussion of Guardian Pest Control contract requested by the interim acting village manager. Item 10.
Mayor, if I can give a little background on this?
Certainly.
We've been working with Guardian in an attempt to get some type of contract set in place in reference to the rodent control issues that, occur in some parts of the village. So we've met with Guardian on a couple of occasions, and the first contract that they had presented was a little high, so we kind of delved a little deep on it and found out that, there was some issues that needed to be addressed as far as the number of calls that they were going on. So what we've done is, at the last meeting, we approved, the board approved an agreement in reference to the rodent control, but what we're trying to do now is get the specific, what we want to pay for that service and exactly, how we want to go through the process of handling that. So that's what was put in front of the board tonight. If we can answer any questions for the board, I have Steve Radis here, who goes out into the field and takes a lot of the complaints, and he's been working pretty closely with Guardian, as well as Finance Director Brian Hannigan, who has been working on this project as well, trying to get this resolved.
Thank you. Any discussion, any questions, gentlemen?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I just would like
Phelan.
to follow up. I did send the board the report today on the data that we compile. And again, one of my bigger concerns is it was the village compiling the data, not necessarily the company, because it became more of a retainer type agreement. This is not to say that the work they did was not good. Everybody speaks highly of it, but as hopefully you saw, the cost, let's put it this way, the cost as it was presented this year would have been the cost of another policeman. And thankfully, as a board, we recognized that it was a little bit of a problem. It got away from us. And now, as I hopefully understand the prior ordinance that we approved, when there's an issue that's caused by the village and residents are affected, the village will take that responsibility, like the big digs along Southwest Highway and other excavations. When there are private contractors doing the disruption, there's escrow. We're requiring escrow payments for that money. So
That's correct.
Earmarked. And then, obviously, public lands, alleys that, are the public, that we take care of, those also would be abated. But for the rest of us, again, the issue is, should we be going on private property to do this work? And like it's been said many times before, we don't do that for garbage hauling, we don't do that for grass cutting. And I think I'm glad that the board, weighed this back in. I would only ask that from a process standpoint. I heard there was proposals that we would be the intermediary or the in-between, or we would bill and then bill. I don't understand why we would consider doing that, simply because, A, we don't have the staffing to do it. We didn't have it prior to COVID, and now we certainly don't have more staff. We're seeing retirements, and just to make this a direct relationship between consumer and company. And hopefully negotiate from Guardian or somebody else Oak Lawn rates that are favorable for our residents and businesses. So, that was my perception. Hopefully when we approve that ordinance, if that's different, maybe I'd like to talk about it.
Trustee Vorder.
Yeah, Steve, could you give me a little update on the history of the number of rats and calls over the years, and are we seeing a decrease in the rat population? For the first time in my life, About 3 days ago, I saw a rat run through my backyard. At first, I thought it was a squirrel, but I said, my God, that's a rat.
It's a big rat, right?
Yeah, so what's the rat situation?
You know, the best I could describe it, Trustee Vorder, it's hard to say if there's been a decrease in the actual rodents themselves. I do believe the research Trustee Phelan did shows the actual calls that were filed shows a decrease from like 2018 to 2019, or 2017, 18, 19. I think it decreased each year. What I will say is it's so hard because what Guardian does, and they do a good job of it, but they bait, and they put a food inside a bait box. Then they go back several weeks later, a month later, and see if the bait is being eaten. And if it's being eaten, then they know the rats are going to die from it. And if it's not been eaten, then there's no activity there. Then they move the boxes around. But what Trustee Phelan said makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways, because if we control it, which, you know, there's pros and cons to everything. If it's not working, or if they continue to have rats, they're going to call us and complain, when in fact we're just calling Guardian. Then it's like a vicious circle. And the administrative hours it would take to do the billing, keep on top of it, follow up, send an email, get approval from a resident saying that they acknowledge they're going to be charged a fee. Do they have a dog or not a dog? This way, I think we remove ourselves from any.
I get that, Steve, I understand, and I read it. I'm just asking, have we seen a decrease in the rat population over the past 5 years? Because we spent a lot of money here.
We've seen a decrease in the complaints. So I guess that would probably correlate to a decrease in the rodents, I hope.
And I also think, Trustee Vorder, it corresponds to the big dig that moved through town and now is over the bridge in Chicago Ridge. I mean, I lived in an apartment by Marist, and they dug up those baseball fields. My overrun
Right.
the field I saw.
Yeah.
There's no disputing that kind of thing can cause, and I think to the list we did see, you saw a lot of homes along that area. I don't know the name, Parkside right off the top of my head, a lot of those that you could directly attribute to that. You know, but there's also that clear evidence that when people know that it's free, you know, well, I think I might have seen a rat. I'm going to call. And that person who's on the other end of the call, knowing they're going to get paid, is not going to go out there and not do it. So, and I think that's what we saw. It wasn't malicious by any stretch of the imagination. It was well-intended. It probably addressed a really bad problem, but it just got unwieldy. And then we saw several instances where commercial properties were paying for it. And that's where it's like, okay, wait a minute. I will point out one example in Trustee Stalker's neighborhood. I got an email, because they're on my email list, I referred it to Trustee Stalker. But if you talk to them, they referred to a neighboring property that had a shed with a lot of rats underneath, and they wanted them to bait more, and because they were baiting their property. And then they acknowledged that, well, you know, they're feeding out of our dumpster. And, you know, when asked, I said, well, is your dumpster secure? And like, you know, there is actually a hole in it. And so oftentimes maybe that's a solution. So they did get a replacement, or I think they're planning on getting a replacement dumpster with a sealed lid. So it isn't, again, I don't want to blind anybody who's in the business of going out and baiting traps, and maybe sometimes there's other ways that you can do this without spending $60,000.
Madam Mayor,
Trustee
question.
Desmond.
So this is, if someone calls in that they've seen a rat, we're going to, email them this, or send it out to them, or?
That was the one proposal I had spoke with Chief Palmer and Brian about today, but there's other options with that as well.
Well, what we did, so everybody knows, is we went back to Guardian and we asked for another proposal. And we kind of explained to them the situation that, you know, the village is moving away from private property and taking care of the private property residents. The issue becomes, if a neighbor doesn't take care of their property, then the village would get called, and then we would go out, Guardian would go out, and they would bait that property, and then we would fine the resident that was causing the issue. The problem is then we get into a litigation issue where if they don't address it, we keep fining them, then we have to lien the property, then the attorneys have to get involved, and then it's an ongoing process. So the whole time we're in that process, that the poor resident that is living next to that individual, not taking care of their property, then has to deal with the rats as well. So I do agree, though, as Trustee Phelan pointed out, back when we started looking at all this, you can really tell that, there was a lot of private residents that were just calling and having this stuff done. So I agree, it needed to be looked at. We did look at it. We went back to Guardian after they initially provided the $60,000 for the year abatement process, and they did give us a new one. And I asked for a couple of different ways that that they could do it and how they would do it. And a couple of the ways they provided us with a price list. If they do it one time a week, 5 hours a day, that would cost the village $25,000 for the year. If they did it one time a week for 8 hours, then it would be $35,000 for the year, or $29,667 for the month. So we also asked, well, what would be the cost if we did it at a per call? And they came back with $180 per call. So if they would, what we were looking at is trying to minimize the cost to the village and the residents, but still provide a service that was within a range that the village could make that payment on, because as everybody knows, that we're dealing in the middle of a budget deficit and we're trying to make cuts, but.
So this $50 fee that we're suggesting doesn't even come near to covering the actual cost of having them come out.
Well, here, I'm going to let Brian speak to this.
Want me to get you one? I get it. All right?
I think we're obviously in the middle of, rat population season, I guess, given that it's the summer. So I provided a summary. Tom's point's well taken. We have a lot less people, but I think we could bill the particular resident, whether it's a commercial property owner or a residential property. And I think if Steve provided my department, the $50 would cover about a $36 cost at that proposal that I summarized for you.
So this is just a work in progress.
Well, we had a call today with Guardian. This would be at the same rate that was in the budget, but only for the rest of the year. So for 7 months, it would allow us to immediately attack the immediate complaints that I think Steve has. The only difference would be that we would get a pre-approval, and the form is attached in that summary that I just. Steve would give my department the addresses, and then we would bill it. I'm not saying there's not an element of cost, but I think it would be something we could do at least for this year while we address the problem. But I think it goes without saying, I think Tom's earlier point is well taken, that this is providing service to private property.
Yeah, just kind of threw me a bit. Is this? I mean, the resident calls up. What do we do? Do we email them this?
Yeah, just like we would do any other permit process. Like if they were looking to have, a block party, they can either come into Village Hall and get this,
Okay.
or we could.
And what is the thing about the dog? Is that just safety?
Well, the dog is part of the problem. That people don't pick up the dog.
Okay, so it's not about locking up the dog so they can. But I mean, there's a lot of other questions, I guess, what I'm getting at. I mean, you could say, do you have a bird feeder? I mean.
Well, bird feeders, people that feed squirrels, that's a problem.
Right, I mean, fruit trees. I mean, most of the time, when we actually go out there, and Steve will tell you, it may not be the resident that is the problem. It could be the neighbour, or it could be across the alley.
That's my point, was if you live next to a person who doesn't keep up their property.
Right.
Even though we're trying to enforce the ordinances as far as, weed or lawn cutting and property maintenance issues.
Right,
This process that we have to go through with the court.
But I guess.
Delays that whole issue.
So, but my question is, so the person that has, the lovely yard and everything is top shape, but the residents on either side of them, they don't pick up the dog waste, they got bird feeders. Do we charge those people in that called?
No, we would charge the people that are not keeping the property. We would still lien the property, but the issue would be is if that person who lives next to them wanted to get the service, they would have to pay for it, because otherwise the village is basically paying for that.
You're right. So the person that has the nice yard, they call her, they would have to pay $50.
Correct.
Okay,
And that would be cheaper than the 180 that they would pay if they called on their own.
right.
So we're trying to offset the cost for the resident, but still not break the village's.
Okay, I got you.
And at the same time, Trustee Desmond, if that homeowner who keeps their home nice, if their neighbors on either side or front or back are not keeping their property up, all they need to do is let property maintenance know, and we'll go out and inspect the property. So if they're not cleaning up after their dog, if there's ground feeding for animals, if there's overgrowth or debris, we'll give them a 5-day warning, and if they don't comply, we'll send it to Public Works to be taken care of, and then we'll lien the property.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Trustee Phelan.
And I do want to, I think this is the critical point, and I don't know if maybe I'm missing, but if there is a problem, if it's somebody feeding birds or squirrels or an action that's attracting these, we need to try to correct that problem. Because we're seeing on that sheet, if you looked at it, multiple instances of 6 and 7, even 8 returns. So either they're not real good at exterminating, or they're just coming back again and again and again because the problem's not addressed. So I understand it's burdensome to do the property maintenance angle, but I think that's the appropriate angle. And there's going to be those people who don't pay, as we've seen for years after years. What do we have, Brian? How many hundreds of thousands that I've paid over the years? I mean, but it's significant, right? But the point to be made is, if we just keep baiting and killing the rats, but then the babies come, and then it's going to be an ever-recurring problem. So I really fundamentally believe that the better protocol is to tell people, yes, this is your problem, so to speak, if it's a neighbor problem, and the village will get involved to the extent you can. But if you have rats on your property, you need to get some exterminator out there. And it shouldn't be me paying for somebody else's, no different than me paying for somebody else's garbage pickup. So, I mean, I hope that's the intent, or that was the intent of trying to clean this all up. It's still giving us the ability, if we notice a problem directly and make a case that it's caused by the village, then certainly I think the village should pay for it.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, that was covered in our ordinance, looking for the root cause and making sure that it's abated. The big change to this is, if you have that problem house, they're going to be held accountable for it.
Yeah.
Okay, Chief, do you need any direction from the board?
Well, what we're looking for tonight is what plan we would want to go with. Do we want to go with the 8-hour plan, the 5-hour plan, or just the $180 call-out plan, which I wouldn't recommend to the village because, or to the board, because I think that would get quite costly. To touch on Trustee Phelan's point, I agree, we shouldn't be going on private property because it brings liability to the village if somebody, one of the children in that yard goes and eats some of that stuff or eats some of the poison, then they're going to come back at the village with a possible lawsuit. But what we could do is we could bait around that residence. If in this letter that we put together, we would get permission from whatever resident would be adjacent to them, we could bait that if it became an issue. But I think what we're looking for tonight is just how the board, how the board wants to proceed with costs.
Again, I guess I'm not being clear. If we entertain this notion of an 8-hour plan, it implies loosey-goosey, show up anywhere, versus a transaction-oriented process, which this, I argue, should be. It's a place that has rats. We want them gone. We want to track if it's gone or not. From the beginning, when I heard about, well, they're going to give us 4 hours a day for 4 days, 8 hours a day for 3 days, how does that, are you driving to the rat and the bell goes off and it's 5 o'clock and you turn around because your hours are up? How is this not always about location? But to that point, we saw 300 plus in 2020 from 500 plus in 2018. I don't know when the big dig started, but what other things, but at 180, that's $27,000. But it's 97% residential property. So entertaining any kind of notion of hourly rate is going to absolutely invite residential problems.
Well, which is why we got the 180, but I think we're still going to have a need, I'll speak, on some village-owned properties. Without the list. There's still instances where we need to hire someone to go out and invest that stuff.
And to the extent the revenue is so great, which sounds like, I mean, I don't know if that's market rate. Steve just passed me a note here. What about our own animal control learning how to do this and keeping it in-house?
Well, I think the problem with that is licensing, and then you have to, it's a lot of chemicals that they're going to have to deal with, and you have to be specially, have special locations to store those chemicals and things like that. That's what I would believe. I am in no means a rodent expert. So I am just going by from the conversations I've had with Mike from Guardian and Nathan from Guardian. I mean, you do have to have specific licenses to do some of these things. And I think if we do that with our own, I mean, we could do that if you.
If I'm about to lose a $60,000 account, I'm going to stay down there anyway.
Right.
No offense.
Chief, the one thing I will tell you is I went out with Mike from Guardian at one point. He's really good at what he does, but basically all they do in Oak Lawn is they open up the box and then they replace the bait. It comes in a pre-wrapped package. They take it out, put it over the stick, and then secure the box. And in Oak Lawn, I'm sure there's other abatement programs, maybe in other municipalities where they're using different chemicals, but this one here, and you're right, maybe they do need to be licensed. Maybe it's something one of us could get licensed at, and, if it's 3% of the calls, we're talking 15 calls a year or whatever, really. So if it's something like that, we could maybe do it ourselves.
You don't need board approval to, you need direction right now, just not.
Right. I mean, what we're doing is we were bringing the contract forward like we would bring any contract or to the board for the approval if the board so wishes to do that. If not, then we can do that.
Okay, no, I don't mean to interrupt you. If we approved it today 8 hours a week, what are they doing tomorrow?
Well, what they would do is they would come in and we provide a list. Basically, it's the list from call-ins that we get, or if there's a location that we know that the village is working in a certain area, doing a sewer project or something along those lines, we would have them go out to that area. But as Steve can tell you, they get calls and then we create a list. 95% we're 97% we're residences. So
Chief, if I can,
A resource, I think, until we get some resource that's got a license. I think the 180 is the way to go right now.
I would 100% agree. That's what I'm hoping. That's what I thought we were doing when we had the ordinance passed, is saying a transactional thing. And if they can provide us the list, which they couldn't do before, I'm not making that a damn statement as it sounds, but they had no impetus to keep a list because all they did was this address, that address, this address. Well, how do you track how effective you are? I know they can say, well, we go back, but we can't track it. We don't know if it's working or not.
Well, when you compare it to Chicago Ridge, there's been a lot of issues. There has been a significant abatement over it.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm not saying get rid of the program.
I'm just saying the reason we have the 25 and 35 is because that was the budget, as we've dealt with this problem for the last 4 or 5 years. And so the 25 and 35 kind of came from them, and those are the hours they gave us. So my recommendation would be, so that we have a resource when we have an immediate problem, to Tim's point, is to go with 180 or 180, I think is what.
Yes, 180.
And we just deal with it that way.
And check that price against the 2 or 3 others.
And then we'll come back at next year's budget with maybe
you don't have a contract with these people, right?
No, that's what we were bringing
So
forward.
tomorrow we can call 2 other providers and say, hey, what's the cost to come out and take a look?
And that's what I put on that summary that I just handed out. Guardian doesn't have a monopoly on rat abatement.
And then now we can provide the residents with 3 options instead of 1.
Which is what we typically do on other matters.
so I think one of the advantages for going with Guardian is they do know the community, and they have been out in the field, and they know the nuances, and, this area has this problem. They know it in a visceral way, and that's an advantage too. But I think, Chief, then you know what the consensus of the board is, and you can get started, and I much prefer that with staff being spread so thin, to having them have more responsibilities. Okay, any other discussion on this item? Okay, village clerk's report.
All right. Approval of semi-monthly disbursements, number 2020-11D, dated June 9th, 2020, in the amount of $9,319,153.34.
Thank you. May I have a motion on 11A?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Trustee Olinick made that motion, seconded by Trustee Desmond. Any discussion?
I just have one thing to add to that, Mayor, if I could. We have a meeting scheduled with the outside dispatch service communities that we provide dispatch services to on Thursday. You'll see on the disbursement there are approximately 5 capital equipment or capital reserve checks that we're refunding because of the COVID pandemic and because of the cash flow. We are going to, that means about $93,000 to us, and those communities you'll see. It means about half of that to them. Evergreen Park, Burbank, Bridgeview. In addition, the village is going to get about $1.1 million in a brought forward true up. So those are the large numbers that are in that disbursement number that Jane just read.
Okay, thank you. And we're calling the vote then on A.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Mello?
Yes.
Trustee Stalker?
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Phelan?
Yes.
Motion passes. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, village president's report. I'm going to keep it brief because of how much has been discussed already. But I did want to just say how proud I am of our first responders. Chief, your team, were so professional. And all the comments here, I agree with completely. The social media was out of control, out of control. I had one ear with the phone with Chief saying nothing's going on, and I'm looking on my screen and residents are berating me for hiding the facts. It was crazy. It was crazy. Residents should look at trusted sources, and just because a group has the name Oak Lawn in its name does not mean it's official or authorized or anything. And I want to caution residents who are listening to the scanners. There's apps that you could have, and you could actually listen to the scanners. Our scanners cover more than Oak Lawn. You're listening to things going on in surrounding areas as well, and you have to realize that. But, you know, I was one of the 5,600 odd people listening on one app that night, and I was blown away by the team effort. You could see the training from our dispatch, who were so professional, so on point, never rattled, completely attentive. It was just amazing, and our police officers so professional. It was just awesome, and I just can't thank you enough. I felt it was one of the craziest days in my adult life. Certainly, we were hearing the worst going on and looking out the window, what is going on, and I always felt safe. And Chief, thank you, and thank you for the team. The training, sometimes we question, how come you guys train so much? How come we do this exercise? Isn't that a waste of time? When you see that training kick in, it is one entity with hundreds of arms working in unison. It was a beautiful thing to see, and it kept us safe. And all that training and best practices was great. I just want to talk a little bit about the peaceful protest we had last week. Many of these were students, and it was really, after all the kind of terror and looting and all of that took away the message of what these protests were. And to see the peaceful protest and to hear the cars honking as they were walking down the street, there is a strong message we all need to listen to, and it's love, respect of everyone. And, all of us in our hearts have had a chance to look and internalize, like, what more can I be doing? What should we be doing? And I think we need to listen and be respectful and, just be the ears of the community, listen. If you see something wrong, speak up. And I was very proud of Oak Lawn. And again, another amazing first responder effort, Chief. We had probably 150 people go down our busiest street, one of the busiest areas in the state, one of the most accident-prone areas in the state. I think Jack Gallagher always called it the top 10% of accidents. We had 150 people at rush hour on a Friday walking, and so many things could have happened. And I'm a mother hen for the whole community. I don't want to see anyone hurt, whether it's from heat stroke or a car accident or, anything. And you guys, it was just awesome. And I saw the preparation behind the scenes to think of all the different eventualities. And, we have, very good team effort, so thank you. With that, I think that's all I got to say. For now, I have a big thing to read here on item 13, so I'm going to breathe in. Nice deep breath. Okay, here we go. 13, Executive Session 2020-05 for the purpose of discussing 1, approval of closed meeting minutes from February 25th, 2020, number 20-02, April 14th, 2020, number 20-03, and May 26th, 2020, number 20-04. And 2, the release of closed meeting minutes from December 12th, 2017, number 1714, January 9th, 2018, number 1801, January 23rd, 2018, number 1802, April 10th, 2018, number 1805, May 22nd, 2018, number 1806, June 12th, 2018, number 1807, August 14th, 2018, number 1808, October 23rd, 2018, number 1809, December 11th, 2018, number 1810, January 8th, 2019, number 1901, January 22nd, 2019, number 1902, February 12th, 2019, number 1903, April 9th, 2019, number 1904, May 28th, 2019, number 1905, July 9th, 2019, number 1906, July 24th, 2019, number 1907, August 13th, 2019, number 1908, October 24th, 2019, number 1909, October 22nd, 2019, number 1910, November 12th, 2019, number 1911, February 11th, 2020, number 2001, and 3, the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired, and 4, the setting of a price for sale or lease of property owned by the public body. May I have a motion on 13, please?
Move to approve.
Thank you very much. This is a motion to go into executive session by Trustee Phelan. Do I have a second? Trustee Vorder is our second. Thank you. Any discussion, gentlemen? Let's call that vote.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Mallow?
Yes.
Trustee Stalker?
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Phelan?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to executive session. The time is 8:58 p.m.